And so now on to our program. We have these wonderful 5 individuals that we'd like to shine a light on tonight. Each of them has a special guest who will be introducing them, and we will be giving their award. Our first Della Strada awardee, Jim Kelly, as you heard in the beginning, unfortunately is not able to be with us this evening, but he has a dear friend, Joe Bracken, who will be representing him tonight, and Father Todd Cornell is going to introduce Joe, who will give to Jim, and Joe, who will give him the award. So, gentlemen, please come forward.
Jim is a receiver of the Della Strada Award, one of these. The Madonna della Strada Award is named after Santa Maria della Strada. It was the first church that was entrusted to St. Ignatius and the early Jesuits to work with the urban poor in Rome. That image is from that church. The award honors lives that reflect the Ignatian values of direct service to the poor and of working, educating for a more just society. Myself and many of us from Northern Virginia know Jim well. He served as a volunteer for 20 years, a IVC volunteer, then regional Northern Virginia director, then with others on the regional council. So for 20 years, we have known him, and he's energized us, and he's pulled us into service, and pulled us into justice, both service for those who are poor and advocacy for those who need it. But strangely enough, Jim's 20 years, life didn't just begin with IVC. His whole life has been a life of service for the poor and working for educating a more just society. Initially, as a serving priest and a missionary in Tanzania, he was sent out to an area unevangelized to begin to bring the message of Christ and on the transformation that was needed. After marriage and children, he began to serve in the State Department, and in particular the nascent refugee service, of which several of his friends are here today. And I was really struck with the impact that this one man had on Africa. In 16 years of active service, either with the Peace Corps in Swaziland, coordinating 70 volunteers there, Peace Corps volunteers, or later as a roving, I forget what you call it, the refugee program. So it was Jim who was sent to establish the program in Rwanda after the genocide, the refugee program. It was Jim who was sent to Uganda to establish the refugee for the State Department program. And all the time, not simply in office, but out there with refugees, Burundi, Ethiopia, Somalia, Liberia. In that time in Africa, I don't know what the situation, 3.6 million people were refugees in Africa in the 90s. And maybe millions more displaced internally. Jim was on the spearhead of bringing the help, not simply of the U.S., but of the European Union, the World Food Program, the High Commission of Refugees. So when he was finished in Uganda, they sent him to West Africa and the Ivory Coast for the same reason, to establish a refugee program. And of course in Liberia, refugees and Mauritanians. So he was completely involved on the front line. person to finish the boat people program in the Philippines. 500 refugees, 20 years later, were left unable to go to the U.S., unable to go home. Who did they send? An African man, Jim Kelly, to solve the problem. In 6 months, with the Philippine government, with some returning home with $1,000 or $2,000, and some received in the United States after being evaluated again by the CPC. He was a man who solved problems, that saved people's lives, that brought real justice by coordinating worldwide, in particular in Africa. So no one I know deserves this award more than Jim Kelly.
This was not planned, but my first encounter with Jim Kelly was in the Philippines as a refugee officer, and he came there to try to address a nagging problem, a bilateral problem between our two countries involving the Vietnamese long-stayers. It's amazing how his life and mine and yours are all meshed over these many years of service. I'm here reluctantly, but in honor of this person. With my thoughts when he called me last week after months of anticipation to say he had tested positive for COVID and would not attend. I said, Jim, just wait until the day before and see if you get a negative test. He said, no, Joe, I might give COVID to someone else. Who does that? Jim Kelly, he is thinking of other people right now as he wishes he were here. I have his remarks here, so I'm going to have to change persona now to become Jim Kelly. The gratitude I feel for the many teams and individuals with which I collaborated in service is loving and deeply personal, and I thank them all. As Father Gerard Fagan, S.J. has written, our later years are a time to acknowledge and cherish the gifts that have been given to us, and the wonders that God has worked through us during our lives. What has sustained me and Jim Kelly and kept me going has been the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, the loving support of my wife Margo and my son David, and the IVC community. And privileged to be used by God in this way of service. Matthew 25, Jesus tells us, whatever you do for the least of these, my people, you do it for me. Nothing is more important than that, and it's what IVC is all about. I'm glad to have served and helped others find their way of service, both in the United States and overseas. The IVC co-founders, Jim Conroy and Charlie Costello, designed a cutting-edge organization for the lay movement, which is the wave of the Spiritual Church. They did their market research, and we, who have followed, have harvested the results, like like-minded volunteers, as we've heard about, spiritual reflectors, the partner agencies, which that list is growing in that pamphlet, staff, and the Regional Advisory Council. Jim says, I am a lucky one who had the first direct service at the Lamb Center, and then had the opportunity to spread the news and make it a reality for others. This multiplier effect has been the compelling motivation for taking the regional director position. Given the large number of male and female religious communities in the national capital area, IVC offers volunteers a wide variety of spiritual reflectors, which we'll hear about, and retreat facilitators, both male and female, and lay, clerical, and religious. Volunteers also meet in small group reunions 6 times a year to pray, reflect, and discuss a book that's chosen by a committee. These reunions are conducted in conveniently located sites. Needless to say, Jim Kelly remained a fan of IVC and would encourage people to join, having discerned that it meets their desires. My own IVC story is this. The Department of State, where I worked for 22 years, provides a retirement seminar for its employees. One of the topics discussed was volunteering, which is what I decided to do. With the St. Anthony of Padua bulletin, IVC had placed a small announcement. I consulted with the pastor, Father Doug Grinnell, we just heard from, who said he knew nothing about IVC, but he had done the spiritual exercises of Ignatius 2 times. I applied to IVC, and the group gave me a list of 3 partner agencies where we could interview. The Lamb Center, a daytime drop-in homeless shelter, was the agency I chose, and I started volunteering in the laundry on November 4th, 2002, just 2 days after my retirement from the federal government. On behalf of Jim, his family, his friends, and the entire IVC community, thank you for listening.
And now what we'd like to do for the second award is to bestow the Kathleen Curtin Spirituality and Mission Award to Martina O'Shea, and her introducer is Father Ryan McDermott. Would you both please come up while I say and explain that vitalizing the energy and action of our service corps members is the spirituality program of IVC, which is based upon the genius of St. Ignatius and his craft of the spiritual exercise. Understanding and teaching the beauty and power of the exercises is a talent that ripens with much study, time, and experience. One of our virtuosos in the field of spiritual direction and teaching it to others is Martina O'Shea, this year's awardee. I do want to let you know that this award is named in honor of Kathleen Curtin, who working closely with Jim Conroy and Charlie Costello, the 2 Jesuits who founded IVC, developed the base and bones of the spirituality component of the IVC mission. Kathleen has served as a spiritual director and reflector for IVC for over 20 years and has inspired many others to serve IVC in the spirituality program. So this is to honor that work. Father Ryan.
At this moment, Martina O'Shea steps out from the shadows of her commendable modesty for a brief time into the limelight of recognition and appreciation as she receives the Kathleen Curtin Spirituality and Mission Award. And we who deeply value this wonderful woman of the Church are so very happy that black light is shining on her, thanks to the Ignatian Volunteer Corps of the National Capital Area. In 1996, Martina became a member of Holy Trinity Parish, and a momentous event we now realize. In the following year, 1997, Martina earned her doctorate in neurobiology at the University of Maryland, a different path from that represented by her earlier MA in counseling and experience as a counselor. And then in 1998, Martina married Michael O'Shea, another truly momentous event. After receiving the doctorate, she intended to become a faculty member at a university. But after doing some teaching as an adjunct professor, Martina was led by the experience of making the spiritual exercises to realize that her deepest desire was to nourish her own relationship with God and to assist others in their own spiritual journeys. She discerned the choice to pursue training as a spiritual director at the Shalem Institute for Spiritual Formation and at other venues, and learned how to accompany folks in the spiritual exercises under the tutelage of Father Jerry Campbell, the founding father of the Jesuit Spirituality Center at Holy Trinity. She succeeded Ellen Crowley as director of the center in 2007, and then became the pastoral associate for Ignatian spirituality and prayer at the parish, and soon developed programs in the spiritual to train spiritual people in the spiritual exercises. But very soon she realized that there was a need for 2 programs, One, training individuals to become spiritual directors, and the other to train directors to be givers of the spiritual exercises. Each program is now 3 years in length. In addition, she developed a one-semester program called Explore and Discern to help individuals discern whether they were being called to training as a spiritual director. As someone who has been privileged for many years now to collaborate with Martina in implementing these programs, I can testify that she is a superb designer of programs. Her attention to detail is a wondrous thing for an intuitive feeling type like myself to behold. Her skills are amazing. A former provincial assistant for spirituality for the New York and Maryland provinces like to call the Holy Trinity programs the Cadillac of Ignatian programs, perhaps dating himself a bit in his choice of metaphor. Tesla? Martina has also designed and coordinated a program that trains IVC spiritual reflectors, and she has been a faithful participant in the Ignatian Spirituality Project, which offers spiritual assistance to women who are struggling with addiction and homelessness. She also has her own extensive spiritual direction practice, and I can attest that she is always available to interview individuals seeking direction to help them find the appropriate director. And many spiritual directors in the region are very grateful to her for the regular in-service programs she makes possible for them. As if that wasn't enough, for the past several years, Martina has coordinated the Washington area ministers of Ignatian spirituality, a group of representatives from the various Jesuit apostolates in the area. Out of those meetings emerged a 5-week anti-racism retreat, setting captives free, which again this fall is being made available to interested people in the area and beyond. Martina's present title at Holy Trinity is Director of Ignatian Retreats and Training Programs. But it's clear that that group can only begin to describe all the rich contributions she is making in the area of Ignatian spirituality. Thank you, Martina, for all your deep love for all things Ignatian, for your wonderful knowledge of the tradition, and for your exquisite spiritual leadership.
I was going to use my iPad, and I brought my hard copy as Plan B, but I think I'm going to do that with Plan B. First of all, thank you, Mary and Mike and Jim and Kathleen and Kathy DeJoy and our wonderful choir from Holy Trinity. It's a real privilege to be here, and I'm very grateful that you've chosen me to receive this honor. Recently, Kathleen and I had lunch, and as we were leaving Clyde's, she remembered that after Father Gabriel Yondo received this award last year, he came to the podium and simply said thank you and sat down. For those of you who know me, you know how tempting that is for me to do. However, there are too many people here who have been involved in our programs for the last 15 years. For me just to walk away. In the past few days, I have been struck by the word transform.
The IVC website explains the purpose of IVC is to provide, quote, opportunities to serve others and to transform lives. Indeed, Ignatian volunteers, as we've been hearing, help to transform lives as you accompany the most vulnerable among us. And in that accompaniment, you are transformed. Our retreatants, the associates in our training programs, and individuals from all denominations, from many denominations in the Washington area, movingly share in the closings of our programs how they have had a transformational experience. Our spiritual directors, in turn, give witness to the transformation as they have had a front row seat to God's action in the lives of those they accompany. This afternoon we celebrate a transformative discipleship, a phrase coined by a dear friend of mine, one that perhaps captures Jesus' words, quote, freely give what you have freely received. When the giving and receiving are done with love, St. Ignatius Loyola's note, found in the last contemplation of the spiritual exercises, comes into view. When one loves, one gives what one has to those one loves. That's what we're celebrating today. Thank you for allowing me to be part of the mutual giving and receiving that describes our transformative discipleship. We are all invited to receive Kathleen Curtin's Spirituality and Mission Award. And in so doing, we become co-creators with God to bring about a kinder, gentler, more forgiving, more inclusive, more just world. One last note. I want to thank my dear husband, Michael, for his limitless patience in waiting for me to come home from Holy Trinity to prepare dinner. His kindness to me when I'm cranky, and his faithful love. Thank you.
Wow, Martina, all that in dinner too. Sister, I'm our second Della Strada awardee tonight, frankly, is known and beloved by almost everyone in this room. Joe Rea. Joe Rea has been a part of IVC's mission at both this local and the national levels. You're going to hear all about that in a minute. For over a decade, with a very, very tangible impact. I can honestly say I do not think that IVC would be where it is today without Joe Rea. He's also an amazing Italian and a man of incredible joy and spirit. He's also one of my very personal friends, along with his wife, Jeannie. So I'd like to ask Joe to come up, and I would like to also tell you that we are honored tonight to have Terry Sawyer, Terrence Sawyer, president of Loyola University of Maryland, who will be introducing Joe tonight. Terry,
Thank you so much, and it's such a pleasure to be with all of you here this evening. For my friend Joe, I am just really inspired by being with so many folks who do such important work in the spirit of St. Ignatius. You know, about a month ago, we were blessed at Loyola to have a visit by the Superior General of the Society of Jesus, Father Sosa. And it was at that meeting where I got to meet other folks from the apostolates from the Baltimore, Washington, D.C. area. That's where I met Mary. And she told me that Joe Rea, a mutual friend, was receiving the Della Strada Award. And she said, it might be fun if you introduce him, and we can keep it as a surprise. So I said, I'm in. That sounds like a great idea. Now, if you know Joe, he likes to know every detail of everything. So it must have been driving him crazy. Who is this big surprise guest that's going to come? So I arrived, drove down from Baltimore today, I walked down the aisle, and I made eye contact with Joe, and he kind of went, huh. It's okay, I mean, I'm so happy to be here. I think he felt that. So the Della Strada Award honors lives that reflect Ignatian values, working and educating for a more just society. I've known Joe for almost 20 years. Nothing brings people together more than common suffering, and Joe and I wrote this place, New Yorkers, that root for the woeful New York Jets. And that has been a common Monday morning talk for years. Joe has impacted so many organizations, including this one that's been stated already, serving on the council for over a decade and for many as chair. But for me, Joe has been an invaluable ally at Loyola. I am the first lay president at Loyola University, Maryland. We've been around for 170 years, and all the presidents before me have been Jesuits. I'm asked a lot what that's like, how I feel about that, and I always answer that I don't view it as a burden, but I view it as a deep responsibility to ensure that our commitment to Jesuit values and to Jesuit charism does not wane. I was very fortunate to participate in a program that the Association of Jesuit Colleges and Universities put together called the Ignatian Colleagues Program. It's an attempt to give lay people that love Jesuit education an 18-month experience that would take Jesuits to probably take 20 to 25 years, including an immersion experience when I went to El Salvador. I was so moved by that trip, and I came back and realized that for me, Jesuit education was no longer a job, it was my vocation, it was part of me. I never wanted to work anywhere else. And I wanted to take that experience and bring it back to my university. And the first person I called was Joe. And Joe put together a program called Mission-Driven Leadership. It's really a model that's been shared to the other 28 Jesuit universities. And it's an opportunity to show people and to help bring them into this incredible family network of education. You know, Jesuit education is the longest, oldest, continuous educational tradition in the history of the world. And through the program that Joe has put together, that we utilize almost every day on our campus, it allows people to realize that when you work at a Jesuit university, when you're part of something like this organization, you're part of something much bigger than yourself, and something that really exists to make the world a better place and to see God in all things. Joe is also now helping us with our next strategic plan, which will take Loyola University of Maryland all the way to 2030. Joe Reda truly is a man for and with others. I'm honored to call him a friend and a colleague, and very, very proud of him for winning the Del Strada Award. Thank you so much.
We have volunteers from our area. Joe Rea, please go to the Della Strada Award.
Gary, it was a surprise. Mary Kennedy, my wife, had this great conspiracy going. And I asked my wife, Mary, and Jeannie hung up the phone because Mary had said, well, I have to ruin the surprise. And I said, oh no, talk to Jeannie. And when Jeannie hung up with Mary, I walked back in the room and I said, do I need to be concerned or do I need to ask about anything? And she said, no, you will be enjoying this. And that was the last I asked until today. I said, please, you kept a secret from me for like a month. Please don't tell me yet. And today, maybe 5 minutes before you came in, Mike and Mary shared the news because they knew I had a program in my hand. Terry, thank you. We have been friends for 20 years and no one could have done a better job, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Terry Sawyer, President of Loyola University of Maryland. I have three things. I have a request for everyone, and Matt, I need you to be taken for that request. I have a confession to make. I don't need a priest, but I do have a confession to make. And then I have comments to make. Okay? So I need you to help me here, because I have a beautiful 4-year-old granddaughter, Celia, in Kansas, who has heard about Poppy getting an award. And she keeps going to my darling daughter, Kelly, her mom, saying, Poppy's getting a trophy. How big is it? What does it look like? So I need you to help me because this is going to be sent to Celia, okay? Because I got a trophy. say that again, please erupt in applause, not for me, but for my granddad. Kelly, look, Poppy got a trophy. Thank you so much. Those of you who have grandkids, you know what it is. That's number one. Here's my confession. A funny thing happened on the way to the chapel. I have this beautiful black portfolio that was given to me. It's embossed with the Jesuits, East Coast province. And somewhere, Carol, Dave, my sister and brother-in-law, between saying hello to him in the lobby and getting out to the car, the portfolio was gone. And unfortunately, Martina, that was my plan A, B, and C. So my apology to Father Jim Conroy and Kathleen, because while you were leading this great, great spiritual prayer service, I was also a little bit distracted because I was trying to reconstruct my speech. And the good news is that, one, Jeannie suffered through hearing it 3 or 4 times. But the good news is the speech is coming from the heart. It's coming for this organization that I feel just so deeply that blessed. Mike, Donnie, and Mary I've known for 10 years plus. So I'm going to try to reconstruct, so I ask for your apologies, but I also speak from my heart, so if I mess it up, bear with me. Is that fair? All right, so forget about the trophy, forget about that. I am truly honored to be up there. I'm honored today with 4 amazing people, one who I know so well, Jim Kelly, who cannot be here, and 3 others, and I'm so honored to be here, being honored at the same time. Although I always will say this, Dr. Fauci, my mother, being a wonderful, wonderful Italian-American mother, having me as her only son, would graciously say, Dr. Fauci should be honored to be there with you. Carol, is that true, Carol? With all due respect, she would say that. I'm honored to be here. I thank all of you for everything that this organization, IVC, has delivered for me, has done for me. I hope I am a better person because of that organization. And I hope that you all accept my thanks, because I don't have time to name all the individuals individually, but there are so many people here who support and love me, not only tonight, but throughout so much of my life. So, I'm going to start my real comments with no little thought, but I want to use one phrase now, and I'm going to use it to wrap up. And it is a phrase from my mother. The phrase is very short and simple, but amazingly meaningful and impactful one for me. We're not lucky, we're blessed. We're not lucky, we're blessed. And I'm so blessed to be out here. I'm blessed with a number of things, and I'm just going to cite the most important blessings I have here. And many of them are sitting right over here in my family. 3 children whom I love and respect tremendously. 3 in-laws, 2 daughters-in-law, 1 son-in-law, 1 daughter-in-law who's here representing the other 2, who I also love and respect deeply. And then, the apple of my eye, I have 4 grandchildren, Virginia, I have 4 children, and our eldest, Maggie Bay Ray, is here celebrating with us. Maggie, thank you so much for being here. Thank you. Jeannie, when I practiced, all I said was, Jeannie, thank you. I'm not up here. I am not up here accepting any sort of award without you. For every crazy idea to get during service, and doing different things. You are there with me side by side, or you're behind the scenes, pushing me, encouraging me, supporting me. You chase my clouds away. Yeah. All right. I have two other areas covered. I'll try to get through them here. Words of inspiration that have inspired me in terms of service. Three of them. And one of them I may not get exactly right. One of them, I hope I did. It's scriptural, it's very straightforward, I'm not going to embellish on it. It's what I think we hear over and over. Whatsoever you do for the least of my brothers, you do unto me. And second, next two are from some travels I had as part of business. I went out to Doha in Qatar for work with Georgetown's program out there. And I went through the CIA, the Islamic Center for Art. It was something along that line. And they had a special exhibit to Muhammad Ali. And engraved in glass as you walked into it was this phrase: service, a quote from Muhammad Ali, service is the price we pay for the rent for a room on earth. Service is the price we pay for the rent for a room on earth. And it just hit me. And the other one I saw in St. Louis. At St. Louis, the Botanical Gardens. And it was in the garden dedicated to George Washington Carver. And the phrase went something like this: no person is entitled to live a life on this earth and leave without leaving an impact on this earth. It was something along that line. And I remember the sun had not even come up yet, and I stayed there for 10 minutes, just saying a little prayer of that inspiration. So, with that, one last thing that I'd like to talk about is a little bit of maybe my approach to service, because I think we all have, that was the why I do some of this. But then I think it's how we do it. And I think all of us have to draw on something that we have strengths on, maybe, or where the Spirit is moving us. And I did, as the Jesuit said, I have done a lot of reflection on this. And what I kept coming back to is that for me, I look at what the Jesuits talk about service, not just for others, but with others, with the community. And for me, I kept thinking, and what also works for me is service in community. Not in the community, but in community with other people, in fellowship with other people. So let me give you a couple of examples, and where I look at that, and this is where, Terry, you're going to use this phrase, but you didn't identify it. I think back to Lodges about doing more, doing better. But I also think very, very clearly from Father Steve Spahn at Loyola, who taught me another interpretation of being part of something more than yourself. And that's what really hit me. That the service that I've been able to do has always been with others, in community with others, and helping me feel as if I'm part of something greater than myself. And the things that I hit with, the examples I put up here, working at Holy Cross, the Academy of the Holy Cross for Kelvin High School, with the Fathers Club, where we did these programs that we call Helping Hands, where we brought 200, 300 daughters and dads together to go off in one day and paint every room in 3 different Catholic schools over the 3 years. It was amazing. I think of other examples. St. Patrick's Holiday Youth Program, where several friends are here today. 20 years of working with that, with dear friends, each year bringing well over 100 volunteers into the program, engaging the entire parish in giving around it, and serving over 1,000 families each year. I think of also our backyard version of the Feast of San Gennaro. 13 years that we had an Italian feast in the backyard. Jean would want to hide upstairs and and what we did is we had a great crew of cooking friends. In fact, a great group of friends who happen to be cooks. And we cooked for 200 plus people, and those 200 people each year would bring diapers and baby formula for the Northwest Center. We altogether collected over those years over 75,000 diapers and hundreds of cases of baby formula. So I give those, and I think I'm way over whatever time was allocated because I can keep on going. So I can go with other examples, but I'm going to stop. What I want to do in this one closing, I want to thank again IVC. Mary, this is an honor of a lifetime. I want to thank all the people, the service corps members, the spiritual directors, the regional council members that have become very, very dear friends over the years. For everything that you have done to indeed serve our brothers and sisters and make this a more just world. I want to ask the Lord to continue to watch over me, continue to watch over my friends, my family, and particularly my friends and family who may be dealing with health issues in these days. And I will end with this, with my mother's quote. I'm not lucky, I'm blessed. Thank you.
As our country and our world has grappled with many, many serious challenges, especially over in the recent years, it has become clearer and clearer the importance of men and women who dedicate their lives in selfless, hard, public service. And in honor of that and recognition of that special vocation, tonight IVC National is launching the Pedro Urbe Award for exemplary public service. And we are absolutely thrilled tonight to be able to bestow the first award on Dr. Anthony Fauci and Dr. Christine Brady. I would like to now invite our IVC National Board Chair, Jim Swope, and our IVC National Vice Chair, Mary Podesta, to come forward and to bestow the award.
I don't think any of us could come up with finer examples of taking the words and spirit of saving nations and putting them into action than our honorees today. So on behalf of the board, congratulations again to all of you. And we're not done. So as chair and vice chair of IVC National Board of Directors, it's our privilege and our pleasure to be here with you today. The Pedro Urbe SJ Award for exceptional public service is bestowed by the IVC National Board of Directors to recognize senior Americans, no offense taken, who have dedicated their lives to working for the common good through public service. Many consider public service to be the backbone of a civil society. I happen to agree with that. It's the practical mechanism for turning the objectives, aspirations, and decisions of people into actual reality. And at IVC, we know a thing or two about service and its power to heal the wounds in our communities and in our hearts. We value the service of people working to overcome poverty or marginalization in our society. And we also value the dignity and equality of all women and men, regardless of race, age, sexual orientation, education, economic deprivation, or social status. And we're here today to recognize and honor the work of two truly extraordinary public servants. concept of selflessness in public service came from Enlightenment writers. It was embraced by and reflected in America's founding fathers, and it is powerfully embodied in the careers of Dr. Anthony Fauci and Dr. Christine Reed.
You've all probably heard the term men and women for others. Father Pedro Lupe, 28th Superior General of the Society of Jesus, coined the phrase in 1973 when he said, gift of your conscience, intelligence, and power. Each of us is indeed a center, but a center called out to give ourselves to others in love. For Rupe, the commitment to others meant undertaking a selfless willingness to pay attention to the injustices around us and develop firm resolve to be agents of change in society, not merely resisting unjust structures and arrangements, but actively undertaking to reform them. We are here to honor two extraordinary public servants. Dr. Anthony Fauci is a physician, researcher, alumnus of Regis Jesuit High School in New York City, and graduate of the College of Holy Cross and Cornell University Medical College. He is recognized globally as one of the leading voices on immunology and infectious diseases. He has served as director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases for 38 years, advising every sitting United States president during that time. Currently, he also serves as chief medical advisor to the president. He helps lead the nation's efforts to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. And although he's leaving NIH at the end of the year, Tony Fauci is not finished. He has told us that in the next stage of his career, he will continue to use his energy and passion to advance science and public health, and to inspire and mentor the next generation of scientific leaders. Dr. Christine Brady is a nurse, medical researcher, and bioethicist with degrees from Georgetown University and Boston College. She has specialized in the care of HIV patients, the study of the disease itself, and the ethics of clinical research. Currently, Dr. Brady serves as head of the Department of Bioethics at the National Institutes of Health Clinical Center. Her service also is and will be ongoing. She has said, I want to find ways to promote moral strength and moral decision-making and to mitigate moral distress experienced by nurses, healthcare professionals, and others. Her work and her papers in biomedical and bioethics research have raised and will continue to raise awareness of ethical issues, including ethical issues during the pandemic. Tony Fauci and Christine Brady heard the call that is in NIH's own goals to exemplify and promote the highest level of scientific integrity, public accountability, and social responsibility in the conduct of science. They answered this call fully and brilliantly, and made doing this their life's work. In doing this, they gave us all a visible, tangible example of something else Pedro Lupe talked about in that 1973 speech. Using one's multifaceted potential, one's readiness for anything, any service that may be demanded by the signs of the times. In their life's work in healthcare, commitment to the common good, and their dedication to improving the lives of others, Christine Brady and Tony Fauci exemplify what it means to lead a life for others, to be women and men for others.
Pedro Ruby, S.J. Award for Exemplary Public Service. They grace us today with their presence, and they grace us every day with their example of being men and women for others through exemplary public service.
Thank you. First, I wanted to thank the Aviation Volunteer Corps for all the amazing work that you do. It's really quite inspirational. I want to thank you for inviting Tony and I to share this evening of gratitude, and thank you for the extraordinary honor of winning this inaugural Pedro SJ Award for exemplary public service. It is indeed humbling to be honored in this way and to be honored with the other awardees. Father Arrupe modeled commitment to others through public service and through attention to social justice and correcting injustices. I have had the privilege of devoting my life work to serving others and through, in small ways, trying to promote justice. I'm grateful to have been guided by the values and experience that were bestowed on me by my parents, by my Jesuit education, by my life partner, and by my faith. So thank you again for this honor. I'm going to turn it over to Tony.
Thank you very much. I first have a very important message to Mama Rhea. Mama Rhea, I am very proud to be in the same chapel with your son, Joe, as he receives this award. Thank you very much. I want to underscore the words of my wife, life partner, and colleague in what we do, Christine Grady, Dr. Christine Grady, in thanking you all for having the honor of receiving the first inaugural Pedro Arrupe Award. From the standpoint of both of us, I can say that it is particularly gratifying and meaningful to me to receive an award named after a superior general of the Jesuit order. Because as some of you may know, Mary and Jim just mentioned it, that from the very first moment I realized who I was with my parents, we were told, as my sister and I, that one of the most important things you can do is to provide service to others. And fortunately for me, that was really underscored and imprinted upon me very strongly because I had the privilege of having 8 years of Jesuit training, 4 years at Regis High School in New York City, and 4 years at the College of the Holy Cross in Worcester, Massachusetts. So one could say I have the spirit of the Jesuit tradition exemplified by Father Pedro Arrupe. I have those Jesuitical fingerprints all over my professional and my personal life, which is service for others. And I have to say quite sincerely that that has been the strength that has really allowed me and driven me to do some of the things that I've done. As you heard, I've been at the NIH for 54 years. I walked onto the campus just a little bit south of here as a 27-year-old physician who just finished his training in internal medicine to start off as a fellow in infectious diseases. Little did I know at the time that several years later I would be leading the effort against one of the most formidable infectious diseases we've ever had, and that was HIV/AIDS well before COVID. And then after many years we had COVID.
much embedded in my feeling of what I needed to do because of service to others. So that's why I say it's particularly meaningful for me to be here today with you to receive this award, but also, as important, is to receive it with my wife, Christine, who is a person who is one of the most modest, understated person who does extraordinary things in her professional life. You often hear it said that the woman is behind a man who does great things. Well, I have a twofer. I have a woman who's behind a man who may not be so great, but also somebody in her own right who has done things, though maybe not fully appreciated by many people, that in every respect is as important as what I have done.